very good morning. My name is Miguel Azevedo. I'm privileged to be moderating, facilitating a conversation today. The conversation will be with Ahmad Al-Ahmadi, Deputy Group CEO of ADQ, and Philip Clegg, Managing Partner of Orion Abu Dhabi. The topic will be critical minerals. I think I've heard about critical minerals already twice this morning. I think this makes it very, very topical. And just to give you a few numbers, with the energy transition that the world is living through, we expect demand for critical minerals, depending on which mineral, is to grow three times, 4 times, 9 times over the next 10 years. So absolutely critical topic. ADQ, who we all know as a very prolific sovereign wealth fund out of Abu Dhabi. They have their own strategy around critical minerals and supply chains, and they have recently established a joint venture, Orion Abu Dhabi, with Orion Resource Partners, and we will be talking about that today. With that, I think I would start with a question to Ahmad around the importance of critical minerals in your strategy around infrastructure and supply chains. If you could share a little bit of your vision and how that fits the whole ADQ strategy.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning or good afternoon. Really pleasure for me to be here today. I want to really thank the organizers for a great venue. I think Investopia, as I was walking through, actually, I met incredible amount of people, not just from the UAE, but really international. And I think that's the spirit we would like to have here in Abu Dhabi. I wanted to start by highlighting why did ADQ get into the venture of critical minerals and mining? Now, if you ask yourself a question, what is the building block of any economy globally, right? You're going to have energy, you're going to have healthcare, you're going to have logistics, and you will have food and agriculture. And I think these are the critical building blocks of any economy globally today. One thing that we felt that was missing is really the mining, the critical mining development. As ADQ, we meet with a lot of governments globally, and we always get the same opportunities. And so we thought there is a vacuum today from offering a business support to our G2G colleagues through the mining front. And so this was kind of an inception of let's do something in that front. And so we went along and we started saying, okay, where should we be present in the mining? Should we just buy a sizable mine somewhere and just put all of our eggs into one basket? Or should we become a bit more innovative and think of an innovative structure where we can diversify our eggs in terms of where we have a footprint of mining and serve a broader amount of audience by providing them an offer that is much more diversified. And I think that's really where we thought, okay, who's the best in class today when it comes to financial structuring, financial engineering of mining businesses? We're going to talk to you a little bit more about that, but that's where we met Orion and the inception of Orion effectively.
Thank you. Maybe we can zoom in now into Orion Abu Dhabi, because the uniqueness of it is you merging the gravitas of Abu Dhabi with the expertise. And so that's a new model. And I think this will dominate the world going forward, given how capital intensive this whole industry is.
Absolutely. I mean, typically when we do partnerships, it's usually partners would want to come and say, okay, give us funding, give us financing. The question is, what can we do beyond that? And that's where ADQ comes into play. Not only we do a financial support to these organizations, but we also open up doors. If you go as a private business to any other country, you're going to have a B2B relationship. Whereas when you come in as a government, it's a completely different nature. And that shouldn't be taken lightly. I mean, we have a lot of joint ventures where we had to redo the business plan right after the JV took place, only because the pipeline that were presented were phenomenal. And Orion JV is not different than that. So since the partnership that we have with Orion, we have developed a significant pipeline. So what Orion does effectively is twofold. One is we go into any country and we present to them an opportunity. Either we finance your growth as a mining business, or we come in as an equity player. Now, what is most important part for us as ADQ is the fact that we also have an opportunity to get an offtake from them. So not only we get financial returns, but we also can get commodities if we choose to do so. And so with the JV that we've created, we have mandated a $1.2 billion of initial investment that we wanted to invest in this sector. And this was announced very recently, actually. And we are already 300 million committed into certain projects. And we are talking about growth beyond that as well. So that's how our relationship is currently with Orion.
The very interesting point here is we are merging sort of the financing side, the investing side, with the offtake, as you just said. Why is the offtake so important? Is this becoming a matter of national security? We see countries getting more involved into it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So if you look at global trends today, there is a race. Whether we like it or not, there is a race towards scarce commodities, minerals, and we have to position ourselves as Abu Dhabi somewhere. And that's where we come into play. Today, if you look at even our local market, we have EGA, we have Emirates Steel, we have a lot of these manufacturing entities that will benefit tremendously from feedstock. That's one. Second is if you think about what can we provide to the world. Today, we can provide clean and green power. We have a unique location from a logistical standpoint, and we also have a lot of incentives to global companies. And so what we can do with these three elements is really import a lot of these commodities locally and think about how do we convert them into a green commodity. And that's something we want to pursue even further.
Very interesting. Maybe I will now move on to Philip, and following on this point, when we talk about critical minerals, for most of us that are not very proficient, there's a lot of names, all Latin names. Can you share a little bit with us how you see the landscape? Which ones are more attractive, more interesting? Can you share a bit of insights on that?
Certainly. Yeah, one of the things I always like to say is that one of the fascinating things about investing in the metal space is that there are just so many different commodities from which to choose. And all of them have got their individual supply and demand dynamics. It genuinely is fascinating. And at Orion Abu Dhabi, we do extensive due diligence on these commodities before making an investment decision. And when I think about critical raw materials, I think of them in three ways: supply, demand, and sentiment. And there are some raw materials, critical materials out there that have really interesting supply dynamics. And I think I'd probably highlight one thing there, and that is really that 20 years ago or so, there was one geography in the world that most people will know what that is, had the foresight to start really investing in raw materials, and particularly in critical raw materials. And that player is now the dominant force. We have a situation whereby 80%, maybe 90%, maybe even more of the processing, and in some instances, the production of the raw material is dominated by one country. And so you can see that that presents a supply chain risk. And so the rest of the world definitely needs to catch up. And that is really the purpose of our JV here. But just taking a bit of a deeper dive into some of these commodities, they really do have really important end uses. They are called critical materials for a reason. You can think of things like gallium and germanium and indium. These are crucial, right? They are needed to produce chips, okay? So think about what that means if there's such a concentration of production of these materials in one country. Think of graphite. Graphite is used in an electric vehicle battery, but nearly all of it is processed in one country. And then you can think of things like tungsten and rare earths. These are crucial in defense, high-tech defense applications. So you can see how supply chain security is absolutely crucial. I think from a demand perspective, I would say there are other commodities that have wonderful demand dynamics right now, and they're all driven by these mega trends that we've spoken of today. Things like electrification, right? Things like urbanization, societal development, and defense. So uranium is one I would actually point out. There are 30 countries in the world that have actually pledged to triple nuclear capacity by 2050. That's an enormous increase in the uranium market. I'd also highlight nickel, which you need to give your electric car performance and range. The size of that market will need to double or so in the next 10 years. So with those demand dynamics, there's some really interesting places to play the space. But I think that I'd probably highlight one commodity in particular that ticks all of these boxes, and that is copper, right? So as I think most people are beginning to appreciate, given that this space has become so topical recently, the future is extremely metals intensive. And one of the core reasons for that is electrification. And what I say, and what I always say, is that copper is the lifeblood of electrification. It's used in pretty much everything. And there are some big trends that underpin that as well. Think of things like AI and data centers. They are extremely intensive on power, first and foremost, but as a consequence, they're extremely intensive with copper. And we have a situation now where there are huge data centers going up, many, many of them globally now. Meta is building one in Louisiana that would cover, a big portion of Manhattan. These are big, big centers. Electric vehicles, again, we are making a move to electric vehicles, even though there is a hiatus right now. But there is 6 times more copper used in an electric vehicle than one with an internal combustion engine, okay? So, really there are some wonderful demand fundamentals that underpin copper. From a supply perspective, and this applies to many commodities, it is getting harder and it is getting more expensive to extract resources. This is particularly the case in copper. Grades are going down. That's the concentration of copper in the ore body, okay? Which means it's going to cost more. The mines are getting deeper, okay? And as a consequence of this, really from a supply perspective, we're going to need an Escondida, which is by far the largest copper mine in the world, about 800,000 tons an annum. We're going to need one of those every single year for the next 10 years. Just to put that into context, that's 30 average copper mines, average-sized copper mines every single year. So it is a huge task, and if you marry sentiment with that as well, everybody is looking for copper right now. That is the one that I would highlight, and I would say that it is a core focus of Orion Abu Dhabi, and guess what? The first investment that we made was in copper.
And with that in mind, with the first investment, can you share with us something around how do you actually invest along the capital structure? What are the different structures? Because I think there's a lot of innovation there as well.
That's true. I would say that Orion Abu Dhabi, which is our JV with ADQ, really benefits from a sort of 12-year period of transactional excellence from Orion Resource Partners. Orion has been something of a pioneer as it pertains to the way that it invests. It has really an all-weather investment strategy. And what I mean by that is all-weather, it can withstand the commodity cycle. There are cycles. We're talking here about the metal markets. And we will do that in the JV as well. And so what we will do in the JV is we will invest right across the capital structure. So that it includes equity and it includes debt. But it also includes something that has been something innovative, something that Orion has pioneered and we will continue in the JV, and that is product-linked instruments. So we make investments into mines in the form of streams and royalties and physical offtakes, effectively making an investment and in return for that, taking a slice of revenue or taking physical product. And so that is going to be a focus of the JV going forward.
So again, it's a combination of the financial side of it with the volume, the quantity, the delivery, the offtake. So it's quite an interesting combination.
That's right. So just to continue on that thought as well, that is one thing that Orion brings to this JV. The other thing is that this JV is going to be focused on emerging markets. And so as a consequence of we're having ADQ as part of this JV, we're going to get access to the wonderful government-to-government relationships that can provide us with. And guess what? Some of these emerging markets where we have these relationships have wonderful resource endowments. So that is really powerful. And what I always like to say about our JV is that it is a symbiotic relationship between the two partners. And those are just two examples of how it really works and is a win-win for both partners.
Philip, maybe 1 minute on one question. I understand, all these minerals are critical for the electrification of the world, which is actually a decarbonization. But sometimes mining is associated with being not so environmentally friendly. Can you share a bit on that? Because there's a bit of a misconception there, I believe.
I would certainly argue it's a misconception. I would say that sustainability is front and center of what Orion Abu Dhabi is doing. And if you do it right, actually there is lasting positive impact on societies, communities, and the environment. That we apply 100% in every single case, best-in-class practices when we make investments. We are a signatory to the PRI. That's hugely important. We're also a founding member of an organization called Mining 2030. Mining 2030 is a group of high-profile investors into the mining space that really focus on making sure that mining companies do things right. On top of that, because of the way that we invest right across the capital stack, we do have a significant amount of influence over our portfolio companies in the way that they will act and to ensure that they do adhere to best practices. And so we do things like ensure that when a mining project is built, it is built according to the Equator Principles 4. That's crucial, right? Making sure that communities benefit and it is done correctly. And if it is done correctly, I would argue it's the opposite.
Very good. Well, we're getting to the end of our time. I think it's clear the combination of public-private financing, offtake, government-to-government gravitas. It's quite a unique proposition. Maybe, Ahmed, I can ask you some closing remarks on the topic. And again, thank you very much for bringing this to Investopia as a topic.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I think we're blessed with a great audience today. I would really encourage everyone today to really think about how can we work together with ADQ? How can we do something, be it in the mining front or beyond, frankly speaking? I think we're at a pivotal point in where we want to achieve and we want to grow out of here. So I would encourage you all to reach out to us, reach out to Philip as well, and let's work together towards something much bigger. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Miguel.